very excited to have this topic today. Can we go to the intro slides? Oh, I keep forgetting. You guys tell me all the time. And oh, there we go. Okay. So we will have the speaker presentation in a few minutes. And then once they're done, do you guys want a few questions during some clarifying questions as you're going? Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing that we want questions during it. We need to tell you, though, and we're going to be very strict about this tonight. We need all of you to come use the mic. So once we're done, the speakers are going to have lavaliers walking around mics. But we're going to pull this mic over here a few feet. We need you to line up and ask your question. You cannot ask your question from the table. So we're going to be strict about that because the Zoom attendees deserve to hear the question and hear the answer. So let's all be very respectful of them. And there's that nice little comment down there: to provide the best experience, please use the mic. Okay? So that is how we'll do this. Zoom attendees, if you will use the chat feature to enter your name, your town, your state, body of water that you're calling from, that's always interesting to know. So we appreciate that. Okay, I have the power, so I get to go do this. All right. We do have a lot of people that help make CAPCA run, and we're very appreciative to our volunteers. You can see our board members listed here. We have a lot of committees and assistants, and we really appreciate everybody. Several of those board members and committees are also online on Zoom, but many of them are here in the room. So if you're on the board or an assistant, or a member of a committee, or write an article for the log, please stand. Please stand. Everybody, okay. So everyone else in the room, if you have any questions about CAPCA, go see one of those people that were standing and they can answer those questions for you. All right. I'll try this one more time. There we go. We welcomed, get this, 39 new members in the last 6 months. This is a record. If your name is on this list, please stand and be recognized. I see you, Ty. I see you, Jim. Okay. Anybody else? All right. And I know there were a couple. I think John Hepler, who just this month, he's online as well. So let's thank our new members and say hello. Next, we have some wonderful programs coming up, and I'm going to turn this over to Hillary to announce her programs. And then you take it from here, right? Okay. You know how to work that.
Let's see if I can get a microphone to work for me. How about that? So we've got upcoming programs. This one's a lot of fun, but next in July 27th, we go to oyster farming, and we go where we have never gone before with programs. We're going outside. So do you want to talk about it? Yeah, he's going to come up and talk about it. It's his venue. It's his oyster farm we're going to.
So we are going to have Chesapeake Bay Foundation come to actually my community beach, where we have some kids who are doing oyster farming. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation brings oyster spat, and we raise them till they're ready to go out into the wild, and then they're delivered to an oyster shoal. So we'll get to see actually what oyster farming is all about. Oysters are pretty stoic, so don't expect to see a lot going on in there. But we're going to have it at the community beach. We'll be outdoors in a pavilion, and I think it'll be a nice time.
I don't think so, but we will be announcing the new location and everything. The other one you see up there is volunteer opportunities for captains. We have a lot of nonprofits in the area that are looking for captains too. So if you've got time to spare to do some volunteer work for them, we'll be hearing from them about some opportunities for that. So keep an eye out on the log. We get to announce all these in the log. And of course, there's a constant contact that comes out for you guys too. So we will in August, there won't be a meeting. So get out there and sail, drive safely, right? But get out there, have a good time. And then we will be back for September. We're still making that one up. And then October, we know what we're doing. November, then it's going to be our annual meeting. So anything else on that? Before we get to tonight's speakers, we're going to have Bob Thompson tell us about him a little bit. So you can do the intro.
All right, I'll use this one. Okay, Hillary, thank you. All right, so all right. So last year we heard from the Coast Guard. They talked to us about their resources and capabilities on the bay, what they do and how we interact with them. But that's just part of the story. There's a lot of other resources, state and local resources. So for this year's program, we wanted to hear from some of those state and local resources. You're probably familiar with seeing some of these vessels on the bay, but we want to hear about what are their vessels, what are their capabilities, how do they operate, how might you interact with them best if something goes wrong, or how might you interact to, to operate a little more safely. So we've got two speakers tonight. I'm going to introduce Officer Tyson Johnson with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Police. Your operating area is Anne Arundel County, right? Officer Johnson is a Eastern Shore native, grew up in a commercial waterman family, and just went on to a career staying on the bay with the Natural Resources Police. We have Captain Michael Mayo with the Anne Arundel County Fire Department, operating the fire boats. He's done a lot in his career. I'll just highlight a few things. He's got certifications in hazmat, high angle, collapse, trench rescue, confined space, saltwater dive rescue, and is a rescue swimmer. So if I get in trouble, this is the guy I want to have come help me out. Okay. So with that, Captain Mayo, I think you're first up to tell us a little bit about what you do, and as we decided, we'll just take Q&A from the room or from our guests online as we go along.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Mike Mayo. I'm a captain with Arundel County Fire Department. I've been told that I talk fast and a lot. I will try to lessen both of those for you tonight. I will have 25 years with the fire department in about 2 weeks. Most of my time in the fire department, I've been assigned to our Special Operations Division. That's where all those other certifications came in. I spent almost 15 years there. I've wandered around the county, assigned to pretty much every battalion geographically in the county. I made captain 3 years ago, and they said, "You used to be a mate. We don't have a captain at the boat station now. How about you go there?" And I'm like, "I'm the least qualified person to go there." "You're going there." So as things are, it's been a great experience for me. I cannot take any credit for the new boats that we have, the 2 new boats. We'll talk about that for a second. They were on their way when I entered that office. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do. So Anne Arundel County Fire Department, we have a little over 1,000 members. We ran over 105,000 calls last year. 350 of them were marine operations calls for service. And that would be anywhere as far as someone jumped off the Bay Bridge, boats in distress, people in the water, boats on fire, all that kind of stuff. Our 2 main marine boats, our 2 fire boats. My boat is the Class E Lady, which is at Sandy Point. And my counterpart, the Lady Avalon, is in Shadyside. They're identical boats. They're 55-foot metal sharks, 2,400 horsepower. They have 2 1,200 horsepower man engines, Hamilton jet drives. They'll do about 45 knots. We run them about 40. They're 37 tons. They displace a lot of water. It's a lot of boat. I've heard the operators that have been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, and they're like driving a Lamborghini. I don't know where any of them have ever driven a Lamborghini and how they know this, but they're really nice. Each boat has 2 fire pumps they're independent of the motors, the engines, drive engines. We can flow, on paper, they say 8,000 gallons a minute. We keep our RPMs at a certain length or a certain rate. We'd run about 6,000 gallons to 6,500 gallons a minute. For comparison, that's about 5 fire engines sitting next to each other flowing water at the same time. So we can flow a tremendous amount of water. My boat went to Delaware last month before last, for that barge that was on fire. They called for any boats that could flow over 4,000 gallons a minute, and they made the 3-hour journey out to Delaware, almost to Cape May. So our other 2 boats are, we have a 25-foot Munson, that's our dive boat, that is located, we keep it at the Coast Guard Yard in Annapolis, and that's where our dive team runs out of. And our other boat is cross-staffed by our Special Operations Division in Jones Station, which is in Arnold, right on the Arnold Park line. It's a 25-foot high field. We have our rescue swimmers that are assigned to the Special Operations Stations at 20, or the Jones Station, which is 23, and that little boat. All of our bigger boats, we have rescue swimmers, basic rescue swimmers. I'm an advanced. We have other ones that are also on there, and the dive team only runs out of the station and the end of Forest Drive. So with those 4 boats make up our Marine Division. We have about 50 members that comprise the big boats, the fire boats, and we have about 50 other members that do the dive and the special operations. So, I think what else? I can talk about my boat all day, and that's going to bore you. And everybody here probably knows way more about boats and marine operations than I do. So I won't do that unless you ask me to. But basically, we are the catch-all, right? So we're not the police. Coast Guard, NRP, they enforce the laws on the water. I don't ever see Coast Guard. Bob, where are you? Bob said you were retired Coast Guard. So God love you. I don't know what they do. No, just kidding. I know what they do, but we just don't see them. We don't deal. We deal with the NRP. They're like our brothers. We deal with them every day and day out. And the Maryland Transit Authority police around the bridge, they seem like, I don't know. They're on the water like that anytime there's something. We're the go-between, right? They don't put out fires. They don't do dive rescue. Well, you guys have divers now. So, but we're the go-between. So we can put out the fires. We can do the rescues. We try not to tow unless it's an emergency. But we kind of fill the void in there for the rest of them. As of right now, both of our big boats are cross-staffed. What that means is, like, my firehouse is the Cape Sinclair Firehouse. We run, I forgot I had video. So I'll talk about that, and I'll point out what these are. My firehouse, I have 5 people on duty every day, and they run the first out. So a fire engine and a medic unit. And if they're on a call, then our fireboat doesn't get out. We started last year with a grant. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Memorial Day for Labor Day, our boats are staffed. And we've made a difference, and we've seen the difference. Just Memorial Day weekend, it was our patrol day. It was the Friday before Memorial Day, and we plucked somebody out right in the entrance to the Severn River. She had fallen out of the boat, and her friend left her because she didn't know how to operate the boat. And we just happened to be going in. It's a funny story. We had a new operator in the boat, and she's like, "There's somebody in the water waving their hands." And everybody's like, "No, that's a buoy." No, she's like, "No, it's somebody in the water waving their hands." And she's like, "No, it's a buoy." And then she's like, "No, there's somebody." We all look, and there's somebody in the water. Like, help me, help me. So we were wrong, and we just had to be in the right place at the right time. We're hoping in the next few years to get the funding to have at least one of our boats staffed 24/7 with 3 or hopefully 5 people. Our minimum staffing on our big boats are 3. And I will tell you, 3 people on the 55-foot boat is actually 56 feet and 6 inches. 55-foot boat with 37 tons, you get overwhelmed very quickly and task saturated. So having the 5 people in there does make a difference. And with the 5 people, we can provide advanced life support. That makes a big difference. So this is our Munson. This is the dive team. We're probably we train off of in Harold Harbor a lot, so that's probably where that is. You just go through it if you mind. Yeah. We'll talk about it a little bit. Do I have it or you? Okay. I can talk about this engine. Anybody familiar with man engines? Wow. I'm a little bit of a gearhead, and it's like, so we have dual man engines. One's on the east side. It's identical in our engine compartment. Each one runs up into a 4,000 gallon a minute hail pump, water pump. It's quite impressive. When we were doing the training, the engineer from Metal Shark, we have 18-inch jet drives, and he says, yeah, I deal with gallons per minute flowing water all the time in the fire service. Like, we have to know what we need, and 4,000 gallons a minute, it's not bad. It's not a lot. And I asked him, I said, well, how much does this flow? He says, well, 4,000 gallons a second. And I'm like, what? And he says, 18 inches, 100, full RPM, full throttle, 2,400 horsepower, it moves 4,000 gallons a minute. It's not even real until you actually get on it and see it. Or get stuck behind it and it's an idle and you're trying to bring a victim or a patient up and it doesn't work. So if you're not in neutral, you're not getting anywhere near the stern of that boat. So next slide, please. So this is another picture from inside our engine compartment. It's I can't quite stand up in there, but we have some. Oh gosh, is that my little bell? Like, it's like you're taking too long. We'll flip on real quick and then I'll get off. So, you go to the next one, please. Yep. This is just a picture. It's not really exciting. This is just our pumps. So that's the water pumps inside the boat, the new fire boats. Go to the next one. This is our 25-foot high field. This is trailered. It's kept at the Jones Station Fire Station in Arnold. So that's really exciting. If you see that, that's great. They were going to use that. They had a call today for 2 or 3 people on a john boat distressed in Whitehall Bay and like 2 foot of water. And we're not getting our boat in there. We're not getting our big boat in there. So it's great having them. And then every one of them are rescue swimmers. They went through a 2-week program with the Secret Service, and most of them are divers also. This is just from our course we had last year with the Secret Service. I will tell you, I did it, and we had 4-foot seas that day in the bay, and they threw us out, and they said, okay, swim until we tell you not to swim anymore. And I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not 25 anymore, although my brain says I am. It's very humbling. So, go to the next one, please. And these are the 2 new fire boats. Like I said, they're identical. We have hull mounted sonar. We do have towfish, a tow sonar that is on our dive boat. We might be looking to getting that in here at some point, but that's another thing we need another hand for. So what we have capabilities, we just got a flare system on these, and it's incredible. I've used it a couple times with people in the water, and it's a game changer for us. Flowing water. So if our main master stream device is 2,500 gallons a minute. If you know anything about moving water, that's a lot of water. And so each one in the back are 1,000 to 1,500 feet. Our monitor in front is also 2,000. So that's how we come up with the 6,000 to 8,000 gallons a minute. And then we also have a supply if we have to do supply a land-based fire. We have a 5-inch line that comes off the back, and that we could supply 1,000 foot of 5-inch hose, whatever you need from the water. And next one. Oh, this is a little video. This was cool. Oh, look at that. See, I didn't bring PFDs, but I got video. Yeah. I can't take credit for that. They won't let me mess with their drones. I break too much stuff. So, yep. Both the boats were just under 3 million after delivery and training. They're about 3 million apiece. So, and we hope to get into a 10 to 15 year replacement cycle on these. It's all cost dependent. So, all right. Next one. And then just like the little boats, we have the capability to get into the small creeks and the places that, trailered boats and dropping them off of docks, off of seawalls, things like that, however it is. This is from a small boat operator class we did a couple months back. So, but it's just, we also have small boats along with the big ones. So we have to get up in there and do boarding or stuff like in shallow areas, or we have a lot of mud rescues in Arundel County. So and it's more pictures of the new fireboats. All right. Did I successfully confuse everybody that what our mission is? Do you have any questions? Yes, sir. No.
All right. So true story. A few weeks ago, I'm training on a sailboat in Back Creek. This is about a 38-foot sailboat. And we're going along with the students doing maneuvers. And I start smelling that classic smell of electrical burning. So neutral, I run down below and I start to lift up, like if you're familiar with sailboats, you lift up the companionway steps and there's front access to the engine. Big cloud of white smoke puffs out both sides. So I throw it down. And fortunately, it hadn't reached the point of flames yet. So we shut down and tied up to a dock. My question is, we talk a lot about fire extinguishers on a boat, but what that struck me is what's the risk if I open that up and let a lot more airflow in there? What's the risk of that turning into something much worse?
So it's going to remain in that incipient stage, like until it maybe does get air, but there's a pretty good chance eventually it's just going to keep smoldering until it finds the air from somewhere. So if you can't de-energize it, or if it's more like it's electrical battery, right? So if you do open it and it catches on fire, you have your extinguisher, you can put it out and cool it down immediately. But otherwise, it's not going to stop. It's just going to, especially if it's energized.
Yeah.
So, actually, I thought you were going to tell me. So during the Blue Angels, a couple weeks ago, we had like a 40-foot sailboat that had electrical fire that we had up in Back Creek. We had to go put out. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Thanks for that. So my follow-up question to that, if I can. So a lot of the sailboats that I teach on, and they have fire ports in the bulkhead surrounding the engine. And the theory is instead of opening up it, you pull the plug out and stick the nozzle of the fire extinguisher, but you're sending the extinguishing agent into the engine box, but you're not really hitting the.
Well, it depends what it is. Is it a dry chem or is it a CO2 extinguisher?
Dry chemical.
Okay, so dry chem, you're still smoldering, you're still eliminating that oxygen. A lot of ones, if you have CO2 extinguishers, they displace the oxygen and cool at the same time. So you don't have to hit it directly to put it out, just smother it. So,
thank you.
They're gonna make you work for it. You got to walk up here. So, and it's a tough room.
First, thank you very much for being here today.
Oh,
I run a CPR first aid training center for the American Heart Association, and 90% of the people that we train are boaters. We do all of CAPCA members,
sure.
that want to take it to us. We focus primarily on what happens if you have a medical emergency aboard a vessel, as opposed to when you're on land. You're on land, 911, you got somebody in your front door in 3, 5, 10 minutes. When you're out on the water, I'm making an assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, that as a fire department, all of your people are either EMTs or paramedics.
Yes,
Is that a true
that's
statement?
correct.
All right. Once an emergency is declared a medical emergency to the Coast Guard, how long is the average time for you to get to that vessel to treat a person? Average. I know that it
Right.
varies wherever the person is.
Man, So that's kind of that's a tough one. So it all depends on where you're at, what time of day it is. It's so many factors involved.
The park.
You know, if you're yeah, Annapolis Harbor, you know, if you're waiting for Fireboat 36 from Annapolis City, they might be there in 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. You know, and we had
You're in
the
Whitehall Bay.
Whitehall Bay. So
Yes,
I can tell you right now, the day it took, we were lucky that one of my crews were at the boat at Sandy Point doing their daily checks, and they got a call today, and it took them 12 minutes to get out of, because we don't have blue lights. We're not allowed to go.
I know it's a tough question
Yeah,
to ask
no,
you,
he's laughing at me. He's like,
because fire, and as I
Yeah.
explained to my class, if you're lucky enough to get a fireboat to come out,
yeah,
you're now in the hands of the emergency medical systems. You've got an EMT or a paramedic to take care of you. I'm again assuming you have AEDs on board.
oh, we do.
Okay.
And then if we're
Because
coming
I know
out,
with Coast Guard, I've asked this question to the Coast Guard, and I'm going to ask the same thing for DNR. I assume you guys are not paramedics or EMTs. Is that a correct statement? That is a correct statement. So if you respond, the need is to then get the person of medical need off
Right.
the boat
right,
and into
It's
the
a-
hands of the emergency medical system. So the time is
it's a process.
really extended. And again, do you guys carry AEDs on board? You do not. So cardiac arrest, their history.
No, that's not true. That's not true. And it depends. Like if you call, sometimes like this, we had one the other day where a young lady fell off the second tier deck about 9 feet, 10 feet to the deck and had trauma injuries. And I don't know if it was they got a hold of the Coast Guard or it was, but they told them to remain on location and let us come to them. And sometimes I'll tell them, where did you launch from? And you safely get back to where you launched from. And I've done CPR. I just did CPR 3 days ago. It's tough to do it 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 minutes, you know, and it's a lot of work. And so, you know, if you have somebody able to operate the boat, but that's what we run into all the time is where the operator of the boat is the one having the medical emergency. And it's not as simple. So they tell you to stay in place.
Please understand the question is not put you on the spot or the DNR on the spot, but it's once again for me to emphasize to all captains and all recreational boaters the need for CPR and first aid
Absolutely.
training
Absolutely.
and to carry an AED on their vessel. That was
Absolutely.
the full
Yeah.
purpose.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
I've got a couple of online questions, and one from John Wesley Nash is talk more about the mud rescues. Where, why, what seasons? When did we get into the mud?
All right. I think I'm cutting into Officer Johnson's time right now. No. So what we have is a lot of were you on the call with me down off of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation where the duck hunter got stuck last year? Yep. So duck hunter went out, set his decoys up, and the water came in a little bit quicker and faster than he thought, and he got stuck in a hole. And it took 4 good-sized men to get him unstuck. And we just walked along the marsh to get to him. But what we get a lot of times are kayakers, paddleboarders, things like that. They'll go out in the marshes, during high tide, and they'll get stuck. And they'll get stuck far. And we've all tried to walk in that silt, that mud. It's not easy, and then it becomes a medical emergency or just becomes a time emergency. They panic and they're not going to get out of there. So that's when I say mud rescues, that's what I typically mean.
Well, here's another question online. Hans Hoffman wanted to know, is your department involved in the Dolly ship rescue activities?
So we did have crews go up. We had our old fireboat and the crew from our special operations division, dive team went up, and they I don't know the extent of what we did. I wasn't there, but they did go up and they were ready to assist them. They were there for a couple days. So.
Any more questions? Well, Head on up to that microphone. We're going to be mean about that.
Everybody you're going to get your steps in today.
Good evening. I'm Captain Jim. I was curious with the amount of water that you're putting out to fight a fire, especially a shipboard fire. Do you have to take that vessel's stability into consideration, especially if its self-bailing system has failed, so that you're not risking capsize? How do you monitor that?
So we do. So we take all those things that you're talking like a bigger ship. You're talking like a cargo ship.
Even recreation.
Okay. So like some of the small bilge, yeah, we do take that into consideration. You know, we are things we're worried about is life, the environment, all those things. So we want to use as less water as possible to extinguish, and we have to monitor all that. Sometimes you have to fill it till it gets to the water line, and then it's out, and then wait till NRP or Coast Guard or a salvager comes and takes it from there. So for smaller, like engine fires, something like that, absolutely, we have ways to pump off water. So we can pump off water. Each boat has two different pumps that we could deploy, air actuated and electric, or air actuated and gasoline pumps that we can deploy to move water off to help. So.
And you had that great shot of the two boats with the water cannons going up. You had the ability for them to, for the autopilot to keep them on station while you're fighting the fire, or does somebody always have to be at the helm?
So we have to have someone at the helm at all times. We don't have autopilot yet. That's one of the things we're hoping to get. We're getting a joystick. Within a few months, each boat's going to get a joystick. Little things we're adding on that we do not have autopilot. So our what we call them, our operators, our captains, we call them MVOs, Marine Vehicle Operators, and they have to stay at the helm pretty much all the time. But those new boats are like when I said about a Lamborghini, I'm not that good and I can operate them pretty good. So they're pretty incredible that keep in place, and they're very powerful. So even with winds and other forces, like if you see us out there using our deck guns, you'll see that we try to keep them aligned with the bow because it is easier to maneuver the boat that way. Because when we start pushing them side to side, 2,500 gallons of pressure, it'll move 37 tons pretty quick. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll get on to our next speaker then.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. So I'm Officer Johnson with the Maryland Natural Resources Police. As you mentioned, I've been in the Annapolis area for about 3 years now. Are you guys mostly from the Anne Arundel, Annapolis area? I'm curious. Okay, so you guys are okay, perfect. So you guys are very familiar with the waterways around here. I wasn't sure if we had some Eastern Shore guys or people out west. I wasn't sure. So perfect. Well, I got two slides here. I got this slide, and then after I get done this, I kind of want to show you guys some of our statistics, boating accidents, kind of break it down by year, different vessels that cause or are in these boating accidents, so we can go over that. I'm not going to bore you to death with this specific PowerPoint because it kind of goes over our navigation rules, which I'm sure most of you are all very familiar with. So I don't want to bore you guys with that. It goes over that, and then it also goes over some of our, just our checklist, boater safety stuff that's required on the vessels. So just a little bit about us. Natural Resources Police. A lot of people don't know exactly what we do. So we enforce all of the conservation, boating, hunting, fishing laws in the state of Maryland. But on top of that, we also do criminal and traffic as well. A lot of people don't know that we can pull traffic just like state police can, just like county police can. No different in terms of that. Our academy is actually a little longer than traditional law enforcement. So we go through a 9-month academy. The first 6 months is all traditional. So like I said, everything that county, state police would learn, we learn. And then the last 3 months, we prioritize all the conservation. So we have a whole month of boating that we do right out here at Sandy Point and Chesapeake Bay. We're out there 10, 12 hours a day for a month straight. So we get a lot of education in that. And then obviously all of the hunting and fishing that we enforce as well. So today I'm specifically just going to talk about the boating side of things. I'm not going to get into the hunting or the fishing stuff. But here in Anne Arundel County, we have, I want to say, approximately 14 or 15 patrol officers who patrol all of Anne Arundel County. Here in Anne Arundel, we're broken up into 3 sections. So we have our northern who they are pretty much from the Magothy River up to the Curtis Bay area. We have our central staff that is essentially from Sandy Point to the Naval Academy. And then our southern district, which is where I work, we are pretty much from Eastport all the way down to the Calvert County line. So it's, we're statewide, so we all work together. It's just we're kind of broken up into those three sections. We have a lot of boats here in Anne Arundel County. So these two boats you see here, this one on, I guess your guys' left, that's going to be an impact. So that one we keep at Sandy Point State Park. And then we also have a big fleet of Everglades as well that we keep in Anne Arundel. Outside of that, we have Zodiacs that we keep. And then we just got some brand new life-proof boats. We keep here in southern Anne Arundel, we keep a boat at Liberty Marina. We keep a boat out at Cirque off of the Road River as well. Sandy Point State Park, keep one at the Magothy Marina, and then we have a couple in Stony Creek off the Patapsco. So they're pretty much in every body of water throughout Anne Arundel. Kind of just depend who's working at that time. Even though we have 14 or 15 guys and girls, not everybody's working at the same time. So it could be two of us working the entire county. I could be down at Herring Bay, down in southern Anne Arundel, and we could have somebody else out in like Davisonville checking hunters. So we might have two people who are nowhere near a boat at the time. That's why we work so well with fire and the Coast Guard, because it might take us 20 minutes to get to a boat. And then depending on how far that call is, you know, we're not always going to be there in the nick of time. So having a wide variety of access to boats is extremely important. So obviously we're law enforcement. So here on the Chesapeake Bay, we enforce and inspect a lot of vessels, different types of vessels. To be honest, we don't deal with a ton of documented vessels. And when I mean that, large commercial vessels we don't deal a ton with. So especially here in Anne Arundel, it's a lot of small recreational type of vessels. You know, your center consoles, your jet skis, that's a big thing here as well. So those are probably the two most common boats that we deal with. But, you know, obviously we go through all the boating safety inspections, you know, make sure you have your flares, your fire extinguishers, your life jackets, all that good stuff. But then we also, which I'll talk about later in the slide, we go over all of our speed zones and you know, navigation lights and stuff like that we enforce. But, you know, most of our laws come from Title 8, subsection 7, so the State Boat Act. So, like I said, it falls under the federal code, but especially here in Anne Arundel, we prioritize a lot with, you know, PFDs. We have a lot of calls for abandoned vessels, especially when it comes to sailboats here. A lot of guys just don't sail boats. We get a ton of calls on those. You know, they want nothing to do with them, so they'll sneak them back into the back of a cove and they'll just drop them off. And pretty easy for us to pull up the HIN number and see who it belongs to. So, but with that, we also a lot of bars in Annapolis, a lot of bars all over Anne Arundel County. So we are very heavy when it comes to drunken boaters as well. So that's a big thing for us here, especially in this area, is people like to, you know, get on a boat and drink. And a lot of times it's at night is when the majority of this happens. And either they don't know how to operate a boat or they're too intoxicated too. So, you know, a lot of boat accidents happen from that, a lot of hit pilings, running aground, stuff like that. So that's a big thing that we enforce here, especially in Anne Arundel County. I'm specifically just going to talk about Anne Arundel County because that's where I've worked my entire career. So every county kind of prioritizes different things, especially depending on the activity that they have. So you guys can go to the next slide.
We've got an online question
Yep.
about how you work together with CTOW and Boat US, Towboat US.
Good question. It's a great question. So per our policy, we are not a commercial towing company. So we don't tow vessels. That's going to be CTOW and that's going to be Towboat US. So a lot of times we will get calls for vessels in distress. And when we pull up to the vessels, they are not in distress. They are just broken down, but they'll call over channel 16 radio and, you know, give a mayday saying that, hey, we need help. And when we get there, they're like, no, we don't actually need help. We just broke down. And I'm like, you can't do that. So we don't tow vessels. In unique circumstances, we will. But if you're just broken down, especially if it's a busy weekend, and we get calls for that, we might be responding to that, and then another actual boating accident happens 2 rivers down. So it's very important. We really emphasize that if you're just disabled and you just have a broken motor or something like that, there's no actual distress, please do not call NRP for that. That's going to be CTOW, and that's going to be Towboat US, because we don't do commercial towing.
Another question online brings up that the new Florida Boater Freedom Act, law enforcement agencies aren't allowed to inspect unless there's a obvious violation. Random safety inspections, property searches, compliance checks are no longer permitted unless a legal basis exists. Do you see anything happening in terms of Maryland going that way? Can you still do random safety check?
So yeah, so everything we do falls under. So per our policy, we are only stopping you if you are involved in a heavy regulated boating activity or fishing activity. So if you're just out and about, we are not pulling up to stop you. If you are engaged in a heavily regulated activity such as fishing, crabbing, or obvious boating violations, like you don't have your nav lights on at night, obviously that gives us probable cause to stop you. You're blowing past the speed zone, we're going to come and make that stop. So that's when we're making those inspections. Or like I said, if it's commercial fisheries, we have the authority to come up to that vessel since they are engaged in activity and inspect that vessel. So this kind of just what I just talked about. This kind of goes over some of the federal regulations that we also enforce. You can move to the next one. Same thing with this, kind of going over the rows, which I know you guys, like I said, I'm not going to bore you with you guys. So, and then obviously you can click one more time. Oh, go back one. So there's certain events that go on throughout the bay, like right now, obviously with the Blue Angels, all that kind of stuff. Different security zones are put up in place where they might not be 24/7. So we're always out there enforcing those as well. If you guys are familiar with the Blue Angel show in the Severn, they shut down the middle of the river right there. So we're always out there making sure you guys aren't blowing through that. So certain situations where there might be some security zones that we're also enforcing. So. Yeah, you can keep clicking through this. So this is kind of what I was talking about, some of the other things that we enforce when it comes to speed zones. This is really big in Anne Arundel County. I'm not sure, do any of you live on the waterfront? Do you guys see vessels blowing by your guys' docks a lot? Yeah, so that's a big thing. We try to enforce that the best we can. Like I said, it really just depends where we're at. Like I said, we might have 2 guys in a different river and we get a call and we have to respond to it. But obviously every vessel is responsible for their own wake. And then we always tell a lot of people that the Maryland Boat Act Advisory Committee, they are basically in charge of developing and reviewing different boating regulations and stuff throughout the bay. So especially if you're a waterfront, live in HOA and you have jet skis flying past your house 24/7, we recommend contacting them. They can review different situations and they might be able to set up new speed zones or temporary speed zones for the time being. So this is a big thing. This is a big question that we get with vessels. Even though I know Coast Guard will hand out stickers and decals if they've been checked, we don't do that because we're always dealing with different types of vessels. If they're commercial vessels, they might be different operators. It's always changing. So I know we give out, the reserve officers will give out placards and stuff. Yeah, they give out the vessel safety checks. But a lot of times people are like, man, we were just checked. Like Coast Guard just checked us. Why are we getting this? And I'm like, well, because it's a little different, like not, especially when it comes to our smaller classifications of vessels, it's not always the same operators when you have your little John boats or your jet skis. So things always get misplaced. People are always taking things off, putting things back on. So every time that we stop a vessel, we're more than likely going to go through a full safety inspection just to make sure you have all the required gear.
You guys are pretty familiar with life jackets, right? Type 1s are usually for offshore, and they're the bigger, bulkier ones. They usually have reflection tape on them, and they're going to make sure that your head stays out of the water, right? Type 2s are the ones that you get at Kmart for $5 that come with all of your boats that a lot of people just leave in the zipped up bags and have the zip ties on them. And is that readily available? No, no. And then the type 3s are the more ones for like water skiing and jet skiing and that type of thing. And they all tell you on the inside, you know, what activity they're good for and rated for. And type 4s, of course, are your throwable, and then type 5s. And this is one of the newer ones from Mustang, a type 5. And it's an auto inflate, and it also is hydrostatic. You guys know what that means? So if I fall in and I go 2 feet underwater, it's going to go off automatically. My son has one of the other Mustang models, and I didn't realize this, but now they have them so it's not, it can be manual or automatic. And so he's telling me that he's going kayaking 2 weekends ago. The boy hasn't been out on a kayak since he was probably 10 years old. And now he's got friends that kayak. So now he wants to go kayaking. So I'm not home, and he's telling me he's going. And of course I'm saying, put sunscreen on and wear a life jacket. And he's like, Mom, we got it covered. Well, then 10 minutes later, he's like, did you say you had an inflatable here that I can wear? I said, yeah. So he takes the inflatable and he starts pulling it apart. What's the Velcro for? What's this do? What's that do? And I'm like, if you had told me this before I left, we could have gone over this. But anyway, I realized as he was opening it up, you know, there's a thing that says for manual use only. And you take that out and you switch it out with the side that's for automatic that has that little salt tablet in it that when it gets wet, it goes off. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know Mustang did this. I'm like, so yeah. So anyway, he ended up wearing that one. And I said, you know what, if you're going to be paddling and stuff, keep it. Just keep it as long as you wear it. He said all of his friends were envious. But yeah, so, and then as far as other life jackets go, little kids under the age of 4, that's 3 years, 364 days. You know, so we don't say you're turning 4 tomorrow. It means today you have to wear this one. And this is what Maryland wants you to wear. It is not federally required. They think the puddle jumpers are okay because they actually say U.S. Coast Guard approved. But we don't like it. We don't think it's safe enough. So we want little ones wearing these, you know, so you guys know that they've got the headrest and it's got the strap to pull them out of the water and then the crotch strap. Yeah. So we want the little ones in these. This one, I'm going to pass this one around. I want you guys to tell me, is this a good life jacket? And then tell me why. Why is it good or why isn't it good?
Well, as you pointed out, it's not printed inside. It's a classification. Coast Guard approved.
It is not U.S. Coast Guard approved. So this, we have loaner life jacket stations at Sandy Point State Park. I love that people want to donate, but when I go to the park, and I'm the one who's in charge of the donation and the regulations of that station, and I find something like that on there, I yank it off because I'm like, I'm going to have to put new signage or something up that says to contact me if you would like to donate. Don't just randomly put life jackets up on there, because if they're not U.S. Coast Guard approved, I don't want that child wearing that life jacket. And that's one of the other things we tell people is go to the store and try on the life jackets and make sure they're U.S. Coast Guard approved. Don't order them from Amazon, Temu, places like that. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know if it's going to be U.S. Coast Guard approved or not. So, does anybody have any questions about
We do have a couple of questions
And we're
online.
also working on getting the inflatables approved for smaller, younger children. Just FYI.
John Wesley Nash asks, has bow riding violations been reduced? Has the public become more aware of that law? Take a bow
Yeah, I
riding
got it.
question.
Yeah, so it has been. It's been a problem. It's been a problem for years. And I personally, I'm not sure if I think there's a lack of understanding of how dangerous it can be. I don't think people realize where they're placed on the vessel if that vessel does come in contact or if there is a collision. I don't think people really understand how important or the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, like I don't think people are just aware of how dangerous it can be. So here in I can only speak for Anne Arundel. It's a problem, and a lot of times people are just so unaware of, oh, I didn't know that, that could happen. Like if I'm bow riding, if I'm sitting on the front and I fall, that vessel is still running. That prop is still running. And we've had incidents, unfortunately, where that has been a problem where people just are not aware of it. So that's one thing that we really emphasize is the importance of staying inside of the vessel. Even I'm not sure if some of you guys, if your sons or daughters have TikTok and stuff like that, but there was a trend going around a few years ago where they weren't bow riding, but vessels were going 30, 40 knots and people were just jumping off of the vessel on the side. Even that, when you make contact with that water, depending on how you land, that's a problem too. So it's not just necessarily bow riding, it's just where you're placed on the vessel and just having an understanding and awareness of what to do and what not to do.
You guys were asking about the response time for emergencies. So part of my job is I go down to Ocean City and I train the PWC guides at liveries, because liveries in Ocean City that rent out jet skis are required to have a guide that goes out with those jet skis, because that's how busy the waterways are down there. We teach these classes. So we teach CPR, stop the bleed, to the guides, because we tell them, who's the first responder? You are, because you're there when the incident happens. In Ocean City, it takes 10 to 15 minutes for a fireboat, NRP, or Coast Guard to get to you. We also tell them, stay where you're at, because when you call 911, your phone is pinging to that spot for one, and they've passed each other. So you've got the jet ski going one way with the passenger, fireboat going the other way, trying to find them. So we tell them to stay where they're at. The one thing the fireboats want to know, though, is the patient. Is it an adult or a child? Because they don't have all the children's like blood products and things like that on the boats. So if you have to call 911 because you've got an emergency, know what the emergency is. So whether there's a head injury, they want to know if there's, you have to put a tourniquet on, is there a missing limb? Is it a child? Is it an adult? Because that kind of gives them the cue to know, now I got to call for a medevac. And it's going to take 20 minutes to get a medevac to you. So keep those things in mind, because anytime there's a head injury, you're going to get medevac. But yeah, we require, and I think you said, or somebody was saying earlier, somebody on that boat should be CPR and stop the bleed certified. And you should have tourniquets on your boat. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. They're absolutely legal. In fact, we highly recommend, if you're a paddle boarder, we want you to wear that, because most paddle boarders, for some reason, like to strap the life jacket on the front of the paddleboard. And my thing is, if you fall off your paddleboard and your paddleboard goes that way and you go that way, how are you going to get to that life jacket and put it on? It's not a pack. Some people want to call it that. It's a belt pack, and you wear it in front of you, not behind you. So yeah, we highly recommend them, and they are U.S. Coast Guard approved.
Yeah, that would fall under, yeah, that's going to be your 16 feet and greater vessels for the throwable, which like the ring.
This one is in good shape. And I can tell because it doesn't have any mold and mildew on it. It doesn't have any tears, rips, or anything on it. All of the buckles are in good shape. As soon as one of those buckles breaks, this is not a good life jacket anymore. As soon as it starts getting rips, tears, it's not a good life jacket anymore. Personally, when they get to that point, I would like cut it up before I threw it into the dumpster because people will dig stuff out and you don't want them to use it. So yeah, but as long as everything, all the boards and everything are in good shape, it's good.
Just to follow up on that, when it comes to, like, for example, when we're checking vessels, when it comes to a lot of like our commercial crabbers, commercial watermen, they're there to do a job. So a lot of times their life jackets are just stored in the front years and years. So when they pull it out, when we ask for an inspection, full of mold, they're ripping apart. So yeah, they might be on there, but just because they're on there doesn't mean they're in good condition and that they count.
And the law is they have to be readily available.
Yep. If I'm doing an inspection and it's taking you 15 minutes to dig through to try to find your life jackets and then they're in a Ziploc bag, no, that's a no-no. They got to be, if an emergency does happen or something bad does happen, you got to be able to put it on. You got to be able to have it right there, ready to go.
Of course, being the boating safety person, I just say, wear it.
That's the easy way, isn't it? Come real close to the microphone, please.
After the Kennedy Beach Ball canoe incident a couple of years ago, I actually worked for Towboat. There was another individual in Lake Oldleton last summer that was exhausted, and he got away from his party. They had 3 or 4 boats tied up, and a beach ball went, and there was wind, and he went after it and got exhausted. I picked him up on my boat and brought him back. But what have you done to kind of, as far as public education goes, towards, if something's floating on the surface, there's no way you're going to catch it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just bringing, like, one thing we really prioritize is like a float plan, which I'm sure you guys have all been familiar with, just kind of, letting everybody know where you're at, where you're going to be, how many people are on board, what kind of vessel you have. But just to follow up on that, for example, I had an incident outside of the South River last year where family went out of Mayo Park and they just weren't aware of the wind conditions. So it was blowing extremely hard out of the west, and they went on their kayaks, and next thing you know, they're almost to Thomas Point Lake, and they're in distress. They can't get back. So us and fire went out there and pulled them off the kayaks and stuff like that. So it's really just bringing awareness and education to be aware of the wind conditions, be aware of what the waves are doing. If it's blowing 4 feet, if it's 4-footers out there, probably not the best idea to be out there, to take your family out there. So just really emphasizing, have an idea of the weather conditions before you're going out there.
So after that incident happened, I thought, what better time to write up to our congressman and say, can we get a law in place that says if you're on a paddlecraft, you have to wear a life jacket? So why not in a canoe, kayak, any type of paddlecraft, you have to wear one. And I wanted to call it the Gideon Law because the little boy's name was Gideon. And usually when there's a disaster that happens with a well-known family, it's usually when things happen, but I heard crickets after I sent it up. So if it's a concern, write. More people that write and say, this is a concern to us that you've got people out on the water that aren't wearing their life jackets in these small paddlecraft, and they're going out in bad weather when they shouldn't be going out in bad weather. In fact, there's some sailboarding, I think, is what's really popular. There's a club in Annapolis. They wait for the weather to get bad to go out. And we've had NRP officers go out and tell them, get back in. But some of these daredevils are looking for that bad weather. But yeah, write your congressman.
We do, for the folks who love bad weather, sailboaters. Does a person sitting on the bow of a sailboat while underway sailing constitute bow riding?
Absolutely.
Think so? Yes, it does. Yeah, okay. Another question from John Wesley Nash. We have, like Maryland, most coastal states have their own set of life jacket regulations. Having experience in many different states, in my opinion, Maryland has a kind of a Maryland has the best and most safe life jacket rules and regulations. So that's just a good job, everybody. Well done. And Davis Jones is a commercial operator. Do you inspect based on general requirements or U.S. Coast Guard requirements or commercial vessels? For example, do you inspect PFDs for commercial type 1 or recreational type 2, 3, or 4?
Can you repeat that for me?
So on a commercial vessel, do you inspect based on general requirements or U.S. Coast Guard requirements for commercial vessels?
Now, when you say commercial vessels,
That would be boats for hire.
okay. Yeah, I mean, we just do our general inspection just to make sure that they have the correct required amount on board. We don't really necessarily get into like the nitty gritty of, making sure it's this one, or this one. As long as it's U.S. Coast Guard approved, it's allowed to be on there. So
It has to fit the persons on
Yeah.
board. So yeah, so here's another thing that's been coming up at NASBLA conferences. You guys familiar with NASBLA? Yeah. So at NASBLA conferences and IBWSS or National Safe Boating Council does a conference annually too. I'm on the education committee, so I sit in on all these meetings and we discuss all this safety stuff. And one of the things that's been brought up the last 3 conferences was, so in Maryland and a lot of other states, when you turn 13, it's no longer required that you have to wear a life jacket, right? Okay, but you have to be 16 to wear an inflatable life jacket, depending on what the label says. So we kind of talked about it and said, well, what if that 13 or 14-year-old was a big 13 or 14-year-old, wants to wear the inflatable life jacket, will wear the inflatable life jacket, do we let them wear it? Well, we all decided, yes, let them wear it as long as they have the carriage requirement, which means as long as they have a one of those orange $5 life jackets from Kmart or Walmart to hold up, they've got the carriage requirement, but they're wearing a life jacket.
So there is a question for captains to know the regulations that change from state to state. Are there sites online that let us know what those changes are? Any ideas?
yeah, pretty much. In terms of like just general,
I guess, yeah. In terms of life jacket rules.
yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, it's all on there. It gives you a checklist. It goes through all the different types of what they do, the difference between each one. So yeah, it's readily accessible if you just.
I just wanted to know, is there a site that lets us know each state we're moving through?
You would have to go to their state's, whoever their boating regulations is, and it could be a police agency or it could be a Parks and Rec. It could be just about anything. You just have to Google it and find out.
Okay, app developers, that's your opportunity there. We need to know.
So just another thing I wanted to touch on was the engine cutoff switch. We call them kill switches. They're extremely important as well. We deal with them the majority on jet skis. They're required on jet skis. Nobody wears them when they're on a jet ski. And most jet skis go, 60, 70 miles an hour. And God forbid somebody falls off, you're going for a while. That bottom picture, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, that was like 2 weeks ago, right in front of the Naval Academy. So I wasn't working that day, but I was watching the videos all over the internet of it. So just a prime example. Coast Guard actually showed us up and they got to hop on the vessel before we did. So hold a little grudge there. But no, that's just an example. But we deal with that a lot as well. It's just, somebody might go overboard, and as they're falling overboard, they might hit that throttle And next thing you know, that boat's going 30 knots, and it's, God forbid, knows where it's going to go. So you guys can keep moving through the PowerPoint. There's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. We kind of went over this. Like, you guys are pretty familiar with this fire. Mike went over it a little bit. Visual distress signal, same thing. You can scroll. I think I got one more slide towards the end. Keep going. Kind of just wanted to talk about some of our capabilities. So yeah, just wanted to go over a little bit of our boating accident and casualties. So if you witness a boating accident, you got to report it. Don't just drive by. If you think something's wrong, please go check it out or make us aware so we know. Call 911 or call our dispatch. I also have another slide that I kind of wanted to show if you guys were able to pull that up. That kind of just goes over some of our statistics.
I got a request for an introduction from our life jacket lady. How about you? Would you like to introduce yourself? We didn't get you earlier.
I'm Donna Revel. I'm the boating safety coordinator with Maryland Natural Resources Police.
There we go. Thank you, Donna.
So these stats are specifically just with recreational vessels, but I kind of just wanted you guys to just get a visualization of some of our boating accident statistics and how they're calculated. So these are just some of the numbers throughout the years on our boating accidents. Actually, last year it's down than it has been for the past couple of years. If you want to keep scrolling down, it goes over some fatalities and those incidences as well. So right here, you can kind of see the numbers. Not what you can see it, but so green is going to be total accidents, red is our injuries, and blue, that's going to be our fatalities. So last year, we had 7 fatalities in terms of boating accidents. So this is just boating accidents. This isn't counting like a drowning that happened from somebody going out swimming. This is just boating specific. Obviously, that number's higher when it comes to drownings as well. These goes over just kind of the different boats and the accidents that occur depending on what kind of boat it is. And actually go up one if you can. It goes over. So these are statistics for wearing life jackets versus not wearing life jackets. So I just wanted to give you guys a kind of a visualization of some of the boating accidents we have. And then when it comes to some of our capabilities, so we have a special operations division as well. So we have a drone division where we have a lot of certified drones. We actually have one of the, our agency has one of the most significant amount of drone operators in the state. We have aviation, so we have a helicopter. They are very relevant for us, especially at nighttime when it comes to looking for boaters. A lot of times we'll get our flare sightings or our distress signals at night. And in Anne Arundel County, sometimes they have their helicopter up, Coast Guard will have their helicopter up, or we'll send our helicopter up. We keep it over at Easton, so it's pretty much a straight shot across the bay. But they help a lot with finding lost boaters, lost kayakers, people in the water. We also have a dive team, so they help a lot as well. Just throwing it out there, for the Key Bridge incident, we were involved with that. And then obviously the helicopter crash in the Potomac last year. We sent our divers down there, and we had a lot of patrol guys go down there and start surface searches and stuff like that. So a lot of critical incidents. We work very well with other agencies. Fires, honestly, they're probably our, like I said, we work really hand in hand with them. So, but it's very dependent. Like I said, we don't necessarily have all 15 of us working the area at one time. So I could be down in the South River, and a call could come out for, just an example would be a Bay Bridge jumper. We get those a lot. So that's, it's not a 5-minute ride depending on the conditions. It might take me 15, 20 minutes if I'm all the way at the headwaters. So it's a fun job though. It's fun. So we get to work with a lot of different people, get to meet a lot of different people. So boating safety is probably one of my biggest things. A lot of guys have their niche on what they like to do. A lot of guys like the hunting side. A lot of guys like the commercial side. But for me, it's just getting out there and trying to educate people on boater safety. And like I said, I grew up on the water. I come from a commercial waterman family, so I couldn't imagine my life not being on the water. So just a way that I like to get back is just education and teaching people, hey, you can have fun on the water, just do it correctly.
If, there's a question online. If we hear about an accident on Channel 16, is there a safe way to find out the results? Is there some kind of police blotter, essentially?
I mean,
Anywhere to look up what
yeah,
happened?
yeah. I mean, you have to, you would have to request a police report through us, depending on if it becomes a boating accident. That's a process. But other than that, I mean, our channels are encrypted, so the general public wouldn't be able to hear what goes on over our police channels.
Do we have some more questions?
Yeah.
It's about time to open it up for questions here. Cheryl's got one, and she's going to come to the microphone. Thank you, Cheryl.
So I know we skimmed past a couple of your statistics
Yep.
slides, and this crowd would love to see those, not right now, but would you be willing to let us post that for our members?
That I'm not sure if I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll verify.
So
it
for the
afterwards.
people not online, the answer was that a lot of those statistics, and I think I have been after I saw you at the boat show, in fact, Donna, I think I did go and look at some of those statistics, and I did find a lot. So this was through 2025, it looks like. So because it is helpful for captains to know this in order to reinforce some of these rules and regulations. Yes. Okay, to the extent we can, Bob Thompson, who writes our speaker summaries, is saying that he can put some of that into our summary. And we also have Bill Washington in our room who also edits the video that we do tonight. So some of that will be able to be in there too. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't run away yet. Here's another question coming up.
What more can be done about the abandoned vessels issue?
I knew that one was going to come up.
There's a 54-footer sitting right off the breakwater at my marina that I understand, bin numbers were ground off and
So I'll pull it up afterwards so we can talk about it a little bit more. But just to give a summary, our abandoned boat policy is very specific in terms of when a boat can be considered abandoned. It's stressful on our part too because we want to help you guys out as much as possible, but we've had plenty of instances where we go to the state's attorney and they're like, this won't hold because it doesn't fall under the statute of what an abandoned boat is. So if you have a boat that's just tied up to a mooring ball or anchored and it's not necessarily in the way of anything, people can leave a boat in the waters of the state, and the way it's written in law, it isn't necessarily abandoned. In those circumstances, we can't do anything about it. Like I said, we've tried taking it to the state's attorney and being like, look, this boat has been sitting here for this amount of time. They're like, it won't hold up in court. So now a lot of times we'll get people who they'll bring in a crappy looking sailboat and they'll tie it to somebody's pier. In those situations, we can charge that. It's a process depending on the amount of days. A lot of our issues turn civil with marina and slip holders. They'll have a contract there and then they'll leave it there. At that point, it becomes a civil issue with them in the marina. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's the way our laws are written. Unfortunately, we just don't have the authority to be able to do much about it because it won't hold up in court the way it's written.
Another online question. Davis Jones works with Sea Scouts who have high interest in marine careers and would love your career. So, any suggestions on how they go to what road they go down to get your job?
I mean, yeah, if you're interested in it. How old, if I may ask?
I think Sea Scouts are all teenagers.
Okay. So it's not up and running right now, but we used to have a cadet program. But we have a reserve officer program. That's actually what I was before I went and joined NRP. So we do a lot. It's not a cadet, but it's a volunteer program, and you do a lot with officers. You can do ride-alongs. You can go to community events and talk about boater safety, life jackets. You can go to boat ramps and give boater safety checks and stuff like that. So it's a good foot in the door. Yes.
Those sea scouts are 14 to 20 years old. So some of them are coming at that program. And
But
we got another question here.
good. How are you?
Question for both of you. I operate a tour boat that does Bay Bridge tours,
Okay.
generally on weekends. So you talk about the frequency of jumpers. Predominantly, is there a trend? Do they occur over weekends? More complicated, but anyways, as far as, if we were out there under there and it was a reporting of a jumper, you'd likely know about it because of traffic, conditions.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say usually, depending on where we're at, a lot of times we'll get a call. MDTA will get a call. Somebody will call 911 and be like, "Hey, somebody just got out of their car and we witnessed them jump off the Bay Bridge." So MDTA gets advised, we get advised, fire will get advised, and usually we'll go out together. They got their boat right there at Sandy Point, and most of the time that's where our closest officer is. So we'll go out there and address the situation.
Is there communication on any marine channels to notify vessels?
We usually, I feel like we kind of work independently
No.
over our channels.
Yeah, independently. Coast Guard stopped
Yeah.
announcing it. So
Yeah.
MDTA has cameras on all over the bridge, and as soon as someone stops, that initiates a police officer up and up on the water and on the bridge.
So it's likely under the condition that we'd have to witness a situation
Right.
occurring
Right.
to be the first to report
Mhm.
or to be able to provide assistance. if
Yep.
necessary.
Yep. Especially when it comes to jumpers.
They purposefully don't announce when there's a jumper because they think that gives other people ideas. So, but I'm like, if somebody is going to commit suicide, they're going to come up with the idea on their own. But I don't know. I just think it should be education, awareness, and more people need to be talking about what we need to do to help people if they're that distressed.
Who manages mooring balls? Private mooring balls in some of these creeks,
So
various other places.
yeah. So
What are the general rules of this is okay and this isn't?
So to get into the weaves of it, what are they called? I think it's the Army Corps of Engineers. I think they are in charge of the vessel or the mooring balls that are registered. Now, a lot of people will put up a private mooring ball and just place it out there. Now that isn't necessarily your private mooring ball because it is not registered. So just because you go out there and place a mooring ball, you don't necessarily own that mooring ball, if that makes sense. So it gets very tricky, especially in the Severn River. I feel like that's where a lot of mooring ball activity happens. But yeah, we don't deal with it necessarily too much. We get a lot of complaints about it, but it's usually the Army. Yeah, they're the ones who are in charge of like people who register. So it's under them, if that makes sense. If it's registered, yeah. So, yeah, could you repeat your question? Just so I'm fully aware of it.
So if there's a private mooring ball, is it registered with the Army Corps of Engineers and with the state of Maryland? And if within the state of Maryland, what do?
I believe it's just the Army Corps. I don't
So-
believe it's registered through us because we don't have anything in our law that specifies mooring balls unless they are specifically. Don't quote me on that because I don't know too much about mooring balls, to be honest with you. But I know the Army Corps, they are registered through them. And then we deal a lot with people who will just go out and place a private mooring ball. But through our law, just because you mark it with private doesn't necessarily make it private. But let me get back to you with that because I have a website somewhere in there where I can give you more accurate information on that.
And if we believe there's a mooring ball that's obstructing a navigable channel, who do we report that
So
to?
that-
Coast Guard?
You can report Coast Guard, but you can also report us.
Okay.
But more than likely, it's going to be Coast Guard taking the lead on that. Yep. And then feel free to, like, if you guys have any questions, especially in Arundel with like anything I've talked about with jet ski complaints, abandoned boats, come talk to me so we can, hopefully we can try to figure something out.
All right. Well, thanks very much to all three of our presenters tonight. I'm sure people learned a lot of interesting things. We're technically out of time and we have to wrap up. I'm sure if somebody has questions, they might find you for a few moments. We would like to give you a little token of CAPCA's appreciation for speaking. And Donna, we learned a lot about life jackets and a lot of other things from you. Thank you so much for coming out and adding to the presentation. All right. Thank you all, and safe home tonight.
Thank you all, the attendees online, as well as the attendees here in the room. Thank you so much. Remember that we have July 27th, which is an in-person outdoor program, which is very unusual for us, but we're very excited. Hillary, you want to say anything?
Yeah, don't forget your bug spray, because
Don't forget your bug spray.
It's going to be catered, so come on along, have a good time. And then I think that'll be a lot of fun. And why not? Let's have some fun this summer.
And we don't meet in August. So,
Yep.
All right. Thank you so very much.